Yeah, I think something that we've seen, especially in the pig and poultry industry in the past 2 weeks, well, 3 weeks almost, with this heat that we've had. So we've had all this heat, but not a lot of rain or moisture. I've seen obviously the past 3 days there's been a bit of moisture in the air, but it started off with a bang. I mean, we literally had no.
So is heat the primary thing that brings on the?
Heat is one of the factors. I think the time of year, it's actually quite interesting and to see how it's like they've got a biological clock. End of from middle August till end of August, beginning of September, and all of a sudden you get this boom because the heat, especially this year, we had no a spring really.
Yeah, so it just went straight into summer. It was horrifying.
Yeah. So, and I think we're all like, listen, what just happened type of thing.
I'm very nervous for February.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the biggest factors. The heat and the time of the year then you get that fly boom.
Also with the midges as well, it's almost when those rains hit and you have the heat and then environment is just primed,
It's like a theme box.
It just, then you get this population explode and you get this exponential growth, right? Yes. Because, I mean, in the beginning and with the environment, especially you have a lot of horses around, you have a lot of manure around, and then that manure starts getting wet. Because I suppose when it's and you get that warmth coming through, then you just have one fly turns into 2, turns into 4, turns into 16, etc.
Spoke before we started. Well, back in the day, and I'm not going to say how old I am, but when buying a little chappy, then you open the paper and then there's a did you know. So this is a did you know.
A chappy paper knowledge.
Yes, yeah. So a fly in its lifespan of more or less 28 days, if you don't use insecticides, can lay about 500 eggs, and they lay them within 75 to 150
500 eggs.
Yeah, batches of 75 to 150 eggs. And within the winter, what happens is that they lay the eggs. A lot of people think that the fly population gets less in the winter, but it's just because their life cycle just becomes longer.
So are you telling me flies are basically, like in layman's terms, hibernating?
Yes.
This is horrifying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they lay their eggs in a cluster.
Okay.
And that cluster can actually go through the winter. The eggs on the outside will obviously die off of the cold and so on. But the eggs that's inside of the cluster, they just hibernate.
So pest control has to happen through winter as well, essentially.
To an extent, yes.
Okay.
But obviously it becomes less. So the management of your manure, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, is also still important within the winter as well. So the reason why we get this big boom of flies within when the summer starts is because of that hibernating eggs. All of a sudden,
they've stored.
The environment is primed, and then all of them just.
I didn't know that. That's actually crazy.
That's also because I always wondered, how do the diseases go from one cycle to the next, right? Because if you assume that all the midges, etc., have died out, and then all the flies have died out, how do they go? Because they generally pick the diseases up from your host animal, like let's say like AHS or Habronema or whatever you have. They pick it up and then they kind of harbor. So they're like basically keeping that over the cold period of time, and then they're coming back up and they're reinfecting the naive animals. So, I mean, that's how the cycle is maintained. So that's quite interesting that they stay kind of hidden there. So, it's quite interesting.
So, Neil, will you take us through what the life cycle is actually?
Yeah. So let's start in the winter time. So the life cycle, obviously, with a fly, it lays its egg. Out of the egg, then you get your 3 larval stages, L1, 2, and 3. And then the last larval stage then pupates. And then out of the pupa comes the adult fly again. So a lot of people also think that you get a baby fly and it eats and then it grows and then becomes this humongous predator type thing. So no, but that doesn't happen.
Those
So-
stupid people. I don't know who would think that.
Massive maggots.
Yeah.
And then the fly hatches.
Yeah,
And,
so
it's-
then
and
the
how long
fly-
does that take? That
so,
whole.
so within winter time, that can be up to 28 days to a month. You can say, a month. In summertime, that shortens to between 3 and, well, the books say between 7 and 14 days, but I've seen it 3 to 7 days.
Jeez.
So if you've got one
horrifying.
fly laying eggs
You could have 500 flies in 3 days.
in 3 to 7 days,
Okay.
and then those hatch, and then they lay 500 eggs. So it's quite exponential. So within a month, you're sitting with
awful.
4 billion flies.
Yeah, I think someone can do the math on that and actually see how many flies
terrible.
there are. Massive amount.
Okay.